Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Outcast beer tasting. I'm Kyle with Andrew Hilton Wine and Spirits, and I'll be joined any minute here by Patrick Schnarr with Outcast Brewing. Now, Patrick has something else going on tonight. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk a little bit about how I came to Outcast. Now, Outcast has been around since about November of 2016 in terms of releases, and they have been one of those little hidden gems with Calgary. Not hidden in the sense of not famous or not well known, because for people who kind of pay attention to beer like myself, like I've been hearing nothing but good things about Outcast in basically since they got started. They were one of the very few like Calgary breweries I very, very early started checking out. These guys predate Cabin, they predate Establishment, they predate 88, I believe they predate Annex. So much fun here. Now we are going to start out here with Hark the Hoppy Loggers Sing, and we're just going to quickly dig into that while we wait for Patrick. I'm also going to open up my phone here and get started on comments and questions and that sort of thing. If you think we're a little behind tonight, that's because you're right. We are just a touch behind so far. And Craig, I am so looking forward to this one too. Ooh, that's going to be really, really pretty and fun. I can't wait for this one. So, interesting, if you've done any like reading in on this on the back of the can here, this is not actually a lager, so I'm very excited to see what his take on this is. One of the things that tonight is quietly, and we'll talk about this before Patrick gets on, I say that every week, yeah, well, okay, Craig and I both kind of are just endless hype machines, it's true. But one of the things I'm really excited about is I'm kind of test casing Outcast of making them kind of our fifth, like always bringing down from Calgary brewery, which would be really, really fun for me. Because we already have the 4. I'd love to make it 5. Now immediately, like considering that they're calling this more or less like a not quite an adjunct lager, although I see that's how it's reviewed on like Rate Beer, or at least how it's categorized on Rate Beer and that sort of thing. I don't get an adjunct lager out of this at all. I get beautiful hoppiness and prettiness. Ooh. Well, I've got the Skype sound in my earpiece, so that suggests we are pending Patrick very shortly here. We got our man? Hello, can you hear me? Well, we can see him. We'll work on the audio as we go here. Now, I do want to just touch base with everybody. Yes, I was in Calgary yesterday. Yes, I did get some cool stuff yesterday. We're going to push all of that kind of the end because we've only got Patrick for about half an hour here. So we're going to make the absolute most of that. Patrick, can you hear me now? Not yet. Okay, good enough. We're good to go? Perfect. Can we just dig a tunnel to Calgary? Well, I mean, I do drive there on a highway, which, okay, considering the conditions I've been driving to Calgary in lately, a tunnel would be preferable, but yeah, a little bicycle-powered moving sidewalk would be lovely. I don't know if you saw the pictures, by the way, Eric, but we did get all the signage up last week, so that was really good. Eric did new signage for all of our wine sections here last week for us, so we have all new wine signage on all of our wine sections except Italy, Spain, and South Africa, but we're very close to those being done. Just a beer bullet train, eh, Craig? Yeah, I'd be in for a beer bullet train. Oh, so, yeah. I think we've got Patrick. At least we have Patrick's audio. Do we have video as well?
We've got video.
We got video? He just can't hear me yet?
Can't hear you
Okay, working on that. Oh, Eric, you did come in. That's good. I'm curious what you thought. We got Patrick on my audio yet? This feels very much like week 1 or week 2 when we were like still figuring out the connection things. We were like, oh, do we have the guest yet? I apologize for this. We knew we had Patrick for a very limited time, so we tried to push the 30 minutes right to the start of the event. So. See, now Canada is also now, well, maybe not quite my favorite, but Canada's right up there. I didn't realize you were going to sneak in like the jerseys from me and Mike's fantasy hockey teams. That was a bit of a surprise. I assumed that Mike had done that kind of on the sly, but apparently not. I gave him credit for being sneaky first. Okay, so while we wait for Patrick's stuff with Aaron to get sorted out here, we'll talk a little bit about kind of what this is, why this is. So this is not a lager, this is an ale. He's using a really particular yeast strain called Crispy, which is a type of Kveik yeast strain, which is designed to kind of maximize tropical fruity flavors. Usually we see this with like New England IPAs, but he's still trying to make this kind of like an easy drinking, everyday, soft, sessionable style, not dissimilar to a lager. But I will say, I do get some really pretty like ale yeast notes on this. It's very grainy for me. I mean, a sessionable lager thing, absolutely. I mean, all lagers are, well, to a point session lagers. I mean, I won't say that it's something like a giant Doppelbock or Doppelweizenbock is going to be a sessionable lager at 9% alcohol, but I think most lagers are usually pretty sessionable. And I apologize for the delay. I've got Patrick's audio in my ear here. I just don't have him on my audio yet, apparently. As I said, we do have a reason for the delay here. It's just he only had 30 minutes for us, so we tried to push the 30 minutes right to the end. So let's just go ahead as though he's not going to be able to join us for the minute, and we'll just kind of power through. So I don't know. I like this. This is my first time trying this. This is the only beer I actually hadn't had before today. And you've caught me a little bit with my pants down here. When I do these, and I know I'm going to be solo, I do a lot of research. I ask the breweries for the tech sheets. Let's talk a little bit about what happens kind of behind the scenes. When I do these, I do a ton of research in advance. We could do the upcoming things, actually, and if this drags on with the tech issues any longer, we are absolutely going to do that out of desperation. But let's talk a little bit about behind the scenes and what I do in terms of preparation for these events. Let's take last week's Mezcal Sotol tasting. I did about 5.5 hours of reading and prep and tasting them, giving it 48 hours, going back, tasting them again, trying to pick the order I wanted to do, not just in terms of ascending flavors. I thought that Mataquiche was actually much more subtle than the Espadin. The Espadin was a little bit bigger. But I wanted to get the right order in terms of how I was going to tell the story, how I was going to present. When I have a guest, which in theory we do tonight, then I don't do quite as much because I want to let him tell his story and talk about the beers from his own perspective. So, Patrick, do we have you now? Now? Awesome. Patrick, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we had his audio for a moment.
We sure did.
We did. It was very brief, but we did have it.
No, you were on his.
Now I'm on his? Because I did have like an infinite echo, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's no good.
That's no good?
Now he's lost you again, probably.
Well, we're going to get through this.
We will.
We will get through this. One way or another, we're going to get through this because I've been really fired up for this one. So I'm going to make this work, damn it. Well, and by me, I mean you, because I have nothing to do except stand here and just, stare at the camera blankly and, try not to make too much of a fool of myself.
Okay. You should be there.
We got you now? Nope, still nothing.
Oh, nothing.
I don't have him, at least.
Oh my god. Try that.
How about this? Better? We got you, Patrick? Sorry for this, everyone. We normally, as you know, don't have this level of technical difficulties. This is new for me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know what? I think Eric did have a good suggestion. We're going to do upcoming things where the tech issues aren't going to be such a thing. So let's talk very briefly about the things we have coming up while Aaron desperately tries to get the audio to work. This Friday is our upcoming Shiraz event. These are $85 tickets for this upcoming one. Now, we dipped our toe into these waters a little bit, I believe back in May of last year, when we did the tasting with Matthew Nugan of Nugan Estate Wines. I wanted to do this a little bit differently this time. Last time Syrah got very much conflated with being an Australian tasting, and Syrah is at its core a French grape and also really important to the South African wine industry. So yes, we're absolutely doing an Australian Shiraz. We can't do Syrah without it. But we also shouldn't have done it in the first place without also doing, you know, something from the Rhone Valley. We're going to do two, and then we're also going to do something from South Africa with the Craven Estate Fierce Syrah. Tasting tickets for this are $85, and very much on the plus side, we don't have a guest, so Skype issues will not crop up.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, there.
I think we're back. All right, I think we got it all sorted.
I've been listening the whole time, but I think you just couldn't hear me.
I couldn't hear you. Aaron had some audio gremlins, yeah. So I believe we have things back. And we may have space echo, but we're fine. We're just going to roll with it.
We're good.
Okay. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. This I've been wanting to have you on for so long. This is like a big day for me because I've been wanting to do Outcast forever. So I don't know if you heard like my promotion. Like you guys were here before 88, before Establishment, before Cabin, I believe even before Annex, and like you were the first like have to try this destination Calgary brewery. You were like a big hype deal in 2016, and only now, like in 2021, are we really starting to see cans. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and kind of the journey that Outcast has been on to get us to the Hark the Hoppy Lager Sing that's in our glasses right now?
Absolutely. So we started as a contract brewery at the end of 2016. I had been previously a brewer at Big Rock, worked at Wild Rose and Last Best, and just decided I wanted to do my own thing. With the blessing of my wife, we decided that we should start the trip towards eventually opening our own brewery. So for about 2.5 years, we contract brewed at Cooley in Lethbridge for 6 months. Cold Garden, Far, basically anybody that could take us for a while, we'd do brews there. And then in the end of 2019, we finally decided that it was, or well, I guess the beginning of 2019, we decided we wanted to have our own place and spent all of 2019 building and opened in the end of October of 2019. And then 5 months later, the pandemic started. So it's been interesting. We wanted to have a taproom focused brewery where every time you came in, there would be 4 or 5 new beers on draft. And we were able to do that for 5 months. And then now it's kind of shifted gears to canning, like you mentioned. We used to have limited cans as contract brewing, but now we're amping it up and hoping to kind of keep a constant stream of cans coming throughout 2021. And as you can see by the selection of beers you have there, I'm not planning on really kind of changing what we do. You know, if anything, we're going to elevate what we've done, getting more into more fruit sours, more kind of hazy IPAs. I've got some new recipe things I want to change up and kind of improve the quality on that. And just keep trying to providing the beers that I like to drink and to the people that want to come into the tap room.
Well, I'm very pleased to see that Big Rock's like systemic phobia of using hops in their beer did not translate to you whatsoever.
It's interesting. One of the things that I've always found funny about Big Rock is when I was brewing there in 2013, 2014, their IPA, which obviously is not meant to be like a massively hoppy IPA, it's an everyday IPA for entry-level drinkers. I dry hop more in my IPAs in 600 liters of beer than they do in 25,000.
It shows. Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, the beer you're drinking right now actually is like on the lighter end of hopping for me. when I made that beer, I kind of wasn't sure what was going to happen. I wanted to have a, just like I mean, I use the term lager very loosely. The Kvike strain I used, Crispy, in this from Escarpment Labs in Ontario, it mimics characteristics of lagers. So this ended up being kind of like a pretty dry lager that I just threw a little bit of El Dorado in to kind of give it a little bit of an elevated kick. It's kind of like a beer that you can, have more than one of.
Well, let's dig into this. I mean, this isn't like a lagered ale or an aled lager in the style of like a California Common or a Kolsch or anything. Tell us a little bit more about your yeast profile here, what you did, what the inspiration was behind it, because we've been doing these for almost a year now, so you're talking to a pretty educated audience of pretty diehard beer geeks, so you're not going to get too technical.
Wicked. So so what it is, it's just a recipe of 100% two-row malt from origin. I use as much local malt as I can. There's only I'm like 2% of our malt usage is not from Alberta maltsters, or Alberta craft maltsters, I should say. So it's just a base of two-row malt, Escarpment's Crispy yeast blend, which is a Norwegian Kvike yeast blend, and then fermented out very quickly, and then I lagered it at about 1 degree or 0 degrees for about 3 weeks. And one thing with this beer that's interesting is, you use the term lager, you expect, see-through, clear, and everything. Crispy is almost like a blend. It's almost as if you took like a lager yeast strain and blended it with like an English yeast strain that keeps a lot of stuff in like a low flocculating yeast. So you end up with effectively a hazy lager, unless you run it through a filter. And then just the dry hop with El Dorado for just a bit of pine, citrus, tropical fruit, just to let you know you're drinking a craft beer and not just Molson Dry.
Yeah. I fully get that, yeah. This reminds me of maybe a little bit bigger, richer version of like Annex's Good Authority, which is a beer I very much like.
Yep, totally. And then so this is, interestingly enough, I mean, you read the name of the beer off. We released 5 beers in December. This came out basically like 3 days before Christmas, with Christmassy themed names. So Hark the Hoppy Lager Sing, obviously after the Christmas song Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Instead of I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, we released I Saw Mommy Drinking Pastry Stout. And we had Sleigh Bells Ring, but spelled like you're slaying a case of beer, SLAY. So yeah, we just tried to, like one of the things that's really cool about our company is, I mean, obviously ever-changing list of beers that are available, and we just do what we want. I bounce all my name ideas off Kristen. She bounces them off me, my wife and business partner. But you're probably not going to find a brewery with sillier beer names or sillier beer labels in the province than us.
Or a brewery with less history about their company on their website, so that I could actually do an introduction.
Websites?
Yeah. Well, you got a web store.
I have a web store, yeah. So I mean, the website's coming. Like we started a rebrand just before Christmas. You could see the new logo on the can there on Rumplestoutskin. And the next step is a website, just kind of like updated with updated beers available and some hours and a little bit of history and whatnot, just a basic site. Everything I do, it's kind of, again, with my thoughts on how things should be. So I brew the beers I want to drink. And the tap room is kind of designed out the way Kristen wants it to look. And in the same sense, I don't ever go to people's websites, so I never thought there was a need for one. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Google, you could generally find most information except an About Us page.
Yeah, so, and I am throwing stones from the glassiest of glass houses when it comes to bad websites, because ours is complete garbage. So, I am definitely coming from a place of weakness if I'm throwing stones on that.
Oh, it's okay, and no, I agree. And again, that just, I guess it was personal preference for me, but you're probably the 100th person in the last 6 months that told me, hey, why don't you have a website? And then I try to come up with all these excuses like, well, why don't you just go on Untapped? Our beer list is on there. Or if you go on Instagram, you can see our hours for today.
And I did all that, and I found a really well-written synopsis of your brewery and your history, written by Hayden from Cabin.
In 2016.
In 2016, which is the only article I could find.
Yeah, from the Daily Beer. Yeah, it's interesting. That's the first thing that comes up on Google when you Google us, aside from our hours and our address. So, yeah, that's in the works. That's kind of something I've put off. It's not exactly been a priority with.
It's a super easy thing to put off.
Yeah, it is.
My website sucks too.
But
Yeah.
alas,
See, Aaron's websites.
does yours.
Yeah, all our websites suck. Who needs a website?
I think the last website I ever designed was on GeoCities
There you
in
go.
wow.
high school.
Yeah.
So if you're cool with that and like having like a little ship like GIF, just like really shitty GIF files all over the website with little animations, then I can do that for you.
Sold.
I need Java though.
So we got 3 questions already. Kevin asks, can this actually be called a lager? I know you're doing 3 weeks of like cold aging. I know
Yeah.
it's not actually a lager yeast, but you want to kind of split that hair for us?
It's not a lager. There's no splitting hairs on it. I refer to it as one because it's in the style of a lager. I mean, when you think about it, the vast majority of the lagers that are made in Alberta aren't lagers at all because they're not proper decoction mashed and they're not stored in horizontal aging tanks and things like that. So, I mean, the majority of the ones that are being made here aren't traditionally lagers. So I kind of took a little bit of artistic creativity on this one to use the term lager because it's got lager characteristics. But yeah, definitely it's I don't even know how stylistically. I mean, if you were to boil it down, it's basically a hopped blonde ale is probably where it would fit as an actual style.
Was there something particular you were trying to pull out of that Kvik yeast or Kvik yeast by doing that cold aging? Was there something particular you were hoping to pull out of the yeast, or was it more just that rounder, smoother, lager-like character for the cold aging?
I mean, Kvik is interesting. Like, it doesn't generate diacetyl. It doesn't generate a lot of the off flavors that most yeast does. Brewers are starting to really like using it in like hazy IPAs because as soon as fermentation's done, you can crash your beer. You don't need to give it that. I mean, you use your due diligence. You give the 2 or 3 days of zero movement on gravity, but you don't need to do an extended diacetyl rest or anything because it clears it up. So the aging probably didn't do much. The main reason I aged it for 3 weeks was I was trying to get it to come a little bit clearer, but it just wasn't going to happen. Like that protein is in there, and unless you use Biofine or run it through some sort of filter, you're not going to get it clear. And I don't do either of those. Not that I intentionally try to make all our beers vegan, but as soon as you use Biofine, you lose the vegan market, and we do have quite a few of them. Quite a few people that buy our beer because virtually all of them are vegan.
Beautiful. Now I'm going to try and keep it short because I know you have a 7th birthday to get to, I believe.
It's the 3rd birthday.
3rd birthday?
But I do, yeah, our daughter Haley turned 3 today, so I've got a few minutes there. My wife is giving them baths, so I've got a little bit of time here.
Well, we're going to run through these a little bit quicker just so I know you have things to get back to. So
Yeah.
we're going to jump right onto the Rumplestoutskin here.
Yeah.
I did taste these kind of in order. I thought about putting this at the end, but I think just the Forgetful Brewers are just so big that they're actually, I think, to me, bigger than the Rumplestoutskin.
Totally. And this is a beer I really like. So I use all of my stout beers have the same base. So if you ever see a stout released from us, they're basically all 6.5%. I brew the same stout and then I treat it differently. We do the breakfast stout as a regular beer. I just change up the coffee that's in it every time I brew it. And Rumplestoutskin is a beer that I find to be super special because I don't just use any coffee. It uses barrel-aged coffee in it. Most often I've bought barrel-aged coffee from Modern Times in California. And Modern Times Brewery, and they also have a coffee roastery. This batch, I decided to go and take it to another level. We did 2 barrel-aged stouts last year, so we had a 16-liter brandy barrel that had basically had stout in it for 13 straight months. And so whenever we emptied it the second time, there wasn't a lot of characteristic oak left. So I thought to myself, well, I'll replenish the barrel a little bit. I put in a bottle of brandy and soak it around for a couple days to get some more characteristics out of it. And then put 30 pounds of Indonesian unroasted green coffee beans in, aged them for 2 months, kind of rolling the barrel every couple of days, and then pulled them out and had a local roastery roast the coffee for me, and then we use that in this beer. So this is Outcast barrel-aged coffee.
So what notes do you find that the barrel aging imparts on the beans that you get without, or that you wouldn't get without doing it?
Yeah, so I find it's not that it imparts a lot of like barrel characteristic. It imparts like you get some oaky characteristic, and you get a little specifically with this one, you get a little bit of brandy, like that grape or like that fortified wine type characteristics. You get in a lot of brandy. I find I get a little bit of that. The biggest thing I find is it actually mellows the coffee out. And I do a lighter roast. Normally we buy medium roasted coffee for our coffee stout, so this one I go kind of a medium light. And I find you just get a little bit more dark cocoa than you would normally get because of the extended aging of the beans. A little more dark fruit, and those characteristics that people don't think of in coffee unless they're kind of drinking craft roasted coffee all the time. So I found it really went and added a lot of those characteristics over just kind of using a regular coffee.
This is absolutely beautiful. Like, it's very bright. I'm surprised how much of the coffee characteristic comes through. I'll also say I'm surprised how much this has changed since it got dropped off here 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, whenever it got here.
Yeah.
When it got here, I think it was a little bit travel shocked, and like the coffee was there, but it was like a little in the background. It was like, okay, that's fine. Like, it's not the greatest stout I've ever had. Now, a little bit of time and sitting and just chilling out in our fridge, now that coffee is absolutely popping. I love this now in a way I didn't when it first arrived.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So I'm going to have to fire Tim, our part-time guy who dropped the beer off. And then, no, I mean, that's one of the tough challenges, right? I mean, that beer, the cans got shook going down the highway for 2.5 hours. It's the same sense that you can't tap a keg the same day it arrives. It has to sit overnight. We really see it even worse, like when beer travels by air. I've had IPAs that like I've mailed to friends on the East Coast and whatnot, and then they're like, they open a can as soon as it arrives, and they're like, "What is this? Like, this is so disjointed, doesn't make any sense." And then like just overnight in the fridge is enough to bring everything back together.
And that wasn't his fault. That was just me being really eager to get into it.
No, we'll blame Tim. It's easier.
Let's just blame Tim. It's easier. He's not here.
You give me money, he costs me money, you win.
Fair enough.
So like I said, that beer is like really something that I find has always been special, and I love drinking it all the time. It's, you know, our coffee process that I use to put coffee in beer is different than anybody else, and that's why you get like that dark fruit and cocoa and like the really pleasant aroma of coffee versus getting any kind of like acrid bitterness or things that can come out of some other coffee stouts. Or green pepper is one that I see in a lot of local coffee stouts.
Yeah, that capsicum note really bleeds through in a big way, and it's really off-putting.
It is, and honestly, it's just the process that you use to insert the coffee. I basically cold brew coffee and add it in, but instead of cold brewing coffee on the side and then adding it to the beer, I actually use the beer as the liquid medium for cold brewing. So when the stout's ready and it's been crashed for a couple of days and I pulled the yeast off and I'm ready to start carbonating, we put all the coffee in a nylon mesh bag and then soak it in the beer while I'm carbonating. So that kind of like the CO2 bubbles is helping the beer kind of reach every point of the coffee. And then I keg it the next day. So we get like 18 to 24 hours coffee time. Once you go past that, you start getting into where the alcohol pulls out some of the less desirable flavors.
Ashiness, green pepper.
Yeah, green pepper. Totally. The bitterness doesn't really come out in cold brewing per se. The bitterness comes out in from the hot side.
Okay. Now I realize this is a question that you could very easily spend the next, however long we've got you left for, just answering this. So let's keep this fairly short. But what can you do having your own setup versus what would you have, been restricted to working for another brewery? Like, what's the experience of having the chains off like?
Well, I mean, I can do what I want. One of the biggest things, even on the contract brewer side, is that you're at the whim of the breweries that you're brewing at. So because, I mean, sours are immediately out of the question because it ties up the brew house for 2 days. You can't brew a sour no matter what you want. A lot of times, if I start getting into where I want to go into some crazy dry hops, they look at the loss and they say, no, we're not going to, or you're paying a premium. Depending on where you brew, when I brewed at Far, I had to follow the Reinheitsgebot when I brewed there. He gave me one exception, and he let me put hazelnut extract in, or pecan extract in a stout. That was the only exception he let me, and it was because my dad was on the label. So the beer was named after him. So he was like, you know what, I'm going to give you this one exception, but like no oats, no fruit. So if you look at the beers we brewed there, I brewed like 2 hazy IPAs, a West Coast IPA, and then that stout and a lager was what I brewed at Far. So, and a brewed IPA. So like everything was compliant aside from that one ingredient that he gave me, and that was kind of the reason that I just had to move on. I was wanting to get back into doing a coffee stout or like fruiting IPAs or whatnot, and So having our own spot means I can do what I want when I want, I'm brewing tonight. If I get to the brewery and I'm just not feeling it, I'll just wait till tomorrow morning, and it doesn't affect anybody but me. So that side of it's really nice. Also, as being able to distribute on my own, like I can actually just drop beer off at you, bill you directly, and drop beer off the next day. As a contract brewer, everything had to go to Liquor Connect, and then you have the time sitting there and potential rotational issues and a lot of things like that. So having your own spot unleashed a lot of things I wanted to do.
Well, gee, it'd be a terrible shame if I was in Calgary every 2 weeks picking up seasonals at Calgary breweries. I feel like that'd be a terrible sort of business synergy that we could work on here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we still have to go to Lethbridge for other people, but absolutely.
I know, but I'm going to still be there. Yeah.
I like it. That's more often
well for
than
me.
So.
So a couple of questions that came in real fast before we jump on to the Forgetful Brewers, because I am going to get you back to that birthday party as soon as I can. Eric asks, had you seen the mesh bag thing done somewhere before, or is that purely your innovation? I think he's asking about the coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime I'm doing something I've never done before, I reach out to the brewing community.
Oh. We lost you for a sec there.
My wife, I think that's my 2-minute warning. So, hurt other people. So it just works. It's porous. You can sanitize it beforehand and whatnot. So it's just the easiest thing. People use it for hops and stuff too in home brewing, but it just really works with the coffee. Keeps 99% of the coffee in.
Nice. The other question that came in real fast was a question about the Reinheitsgebot and what sort of hoops you had to jump through to comply at FAR.
Not really. He just wouldn't let me use certain ingredients. That was all.
Yeah, it's the whole water, barley, yeast, hops, and it's a very restrictive set of rules. We'll cover that briefly after we don't have you on cam, because I know you've got a very limited time.
I do. So I guess like I said, I have about a minute left. I wanted to just explain the Forgetful Brewers, kind of in the story behind it. The Forgetful Brewer is a beer that I originally brewed at Cooley. It was supposed to originally be a batch of breakfast stout. I forgot to pick up the specialty malts. I forgot the specialty malts. So we just had to basically put something together with what Cooley had on hand. I had some Citra hops for the boil and ordered some beer hops for the dry hop, and what was going to be a stout turned into a double IPA that had crazy reception across Canada. Won 2 national awards, the Canadian Brewing Awards. It's the only beer that we brew year-round without changing the recipe. Awesome. And then the pineapple version was just something that originally started in the tap room as a 20-liter keg. And I just wanted to do something different. I had a fresh batch of Forgetful Brewer, threw some pineapple juice in 20-liter keg, throw it on tap on a Thursday just to see what people think. I ended up having to do like 4 20-liter kegs in a row and then a couple 60-liter kegs. And then I was like, well, okay, this is incredibly popular. So just brewed a full batch of it. So it's the same Forgetful Brewer base beer, just with 10% pineapple juice added to it.
Beautiful. Well,
just for that little kick.
We won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for doing this. We will put a pin in this. We will get you back for a much longer, much more well-rounded event for later on. But you're only 3 once, so you go enjoy that party.
I will. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Good night. Well, we knew we'd only have him for a limited time. We had him for a limited time. Let's jump into some double IPAs. Now we're into my wheelhouse. Now we're into the IPA country, because this is what I'm here for. And I do apologize on Aaron's behalf. Actually, Aaron's left, so screw that guy. It's all his fault. I do apologize that we lost a bit of Patrick's time with the tech support issues, but, these things happen. Aaron is always building and expanding and changing the rig, and we're all richer for it. The quality has gotten so much better over the last year, but sometimes we have little bugs that happen every now and then.
Oh, man.
I blame dry February for Aaron.
I know, I'm just not loose enough.
You're just not loose enough. You're just so tight, you're just ruining everything. Craig, I don't know what volume is a full batch, I apologize. But let's jump into this. Okay, I immediately love this. Obviously a West Coast sort of influence. I definitely get grapefruit, pine. I get that that Ritz cracker sort of graham cracker sort of sweetness coming off of this. And yeah, big barley backbone. I think that's what I'm talking about too. The barley is part of the show. And then Eric jumps in with a question I genuinely can't answer. I don't know how many of my beers are vegan certified because there are so many different... it's not, nobody's throwing in ground beef with their beer, but there's so many of the clarifying agent, like... Yeah, but there's so many different clarifying agents between isinglass or just straight gelatin. It's the same with wine. Nobody's adding, meat to their wine, but it's what you use to clarify it because so many of them are animal derived or egg derived. I honestly don't know. That's a really good question because I genuinely don't know. I mean, everything from Cabin could be vegan. They don't say on the cans as far as I'm aware, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, this is, for those of you who are here for like the Red Racer IPA, this is that but done in a much more modern style. This is very classical, big coppery gold, sticky, rich West Coast IPA of the old-fashioned style that not that many people still make, and I just love it. This is like coming home for me. Oh, and Fermented Nerds coming in off the top rope and just like, oh yeah, here you go. Here's everything you need to know. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh, all of that. Yes, please. That's absolutely my thing. That's classic West Coast style done. Okay. I know it's only 8%, but I'd call that a classic IPA, not a double IPA, but that's because I'm old. No, that's exactly feels like coming home to me. That feels like I'm 26 and, taking home my 6-pack or 12-pack of Red Racer small cans. But it still tastes like that used to 15 years ago. Oh, I love that. That's absolutely tremendous. Would it be the top West Coast we've had? No, I will put it underneath the break side. The classic, this is better than Wanderlust, but this is probably for me a little below the classic break side, and it's probably just below the Cabin Seasons Pass. But those are both absolutely spectacular West Coast IPAs, but also of a different style. Those are more in the paler kind of Russian River, Lagunitas, North California style. This is more the earlier style, the early Sierra Nevada Torpedo, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, Red Racer IPA Tree Hophead style that kind of preceded it. Yeah, this rules, but it's a slightly different style. This is old school West Coast versus kind of mid to late 2000s West Coast. Also, if anyone watching is the person who's been phoning this store for the last 10 minutes and just non-stop, please stop, because it is getting really annoying. And there's the next tasting. All West Coast all the time.
Oh, whoops. Oh, no, we're good.
I would love to do all West Coast all the time. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But the issue is the number of West Coast IPAs that are a regular staple. Breweries are starting to dip their toes back in. I'll use the Cabin Season Pass just because it's top of mind. That was a seasonal. They don't make a West Coast IPA as a staple because East Coast IPA is kind of running the market right now. West Coast IPAs kind of tend to be seasonals for a lot of breweries, or they tend to be breweries like Central City's Red Racer that have kind of been sticking with the same recipe for a while. I don't think there are enough regular release West Coast IPAs that I can always get that I respect to actually do a full-on West Coast week. Because believe me, you know my feelings on this. You know I've been thinking about it. But there just hasn't been enough of them as a regular thing. That's a really interesting question. Well, let's run through these very quickly. Yeah, I do actually want to hear Wally try to back that up, because old school Stone style, this is a little bit like Arrogant Bastard, but I'd say Stone's IPA style was very much in that Lagunitas, Russian River, like very pale West Coast style. Eric, yes, you do get to ask about Love Shack. We have both the 88 and cabin versions. I only got 2 flats of the 88 yesterday. They're going to bring down 5 or 6 more flats on Friday, so we're going to have more for the weekend. And Love Shack is absolutely delicious, by the way. I have only had the 88 version. I had it about 45 minutes before the cameras went on. It owns. It's an absolutely spectacular IPA. It is going to sell out really fast, but we are going to have more for Friday. Deirdre actually asked the best question so far for me. Why have we heard of several IPAs have won awards, but don't recall any other beers having winning awards or having won awards? It's because in category, IPA tends to be the hardest category to win. You know, like let's throw back to, you know, establishments Left My Wallet and El Segundo, which was a fruited smoked sour. If you're throwing the fruited smoked sour, you've won by default. Like, brewing is very category based. The biggest category, and therefore the hardest to win, is American IPA. It just is. If you're going to win an award in a category that's not best of show, if you can win in American IPA, that's usually harder than winning in like best of show. It's the hardest category to win in. So breweries tend to say, oh, we won as our top IPA in this show. I mean, our stout won best stout, but you know, that and $5 will get you a sandwich. It's not the same thing. To be the top IPA of a show tends to be the most prestigious thing, at least among brewers. And yeah, Left My Wallet, I think I talked about this when I was doing my Beers of 2020. I put Jamrock on the table to talk about Part-Time Model, Left My Wallet and El Segundo, 2 Tickets to Paradise, all the establishment seasonals that couldn't be there that night. All the things I absolutely loved that, you know, they were there and gone. They were a one-time brewer or a seasonal or whatever. No, I very much put a pin in, you know, Jamrock's a great beer. It is. It's a lovely, fresh, wonderful sour. Did that need to be on the table with Dial Up and the other beers that put on the table? We'll see. It was there because there were so many things from Establishment last year that I absolutely loved. I'm still drinking out of an Establishment glass. It was there because a lot of the things I wanted to put on the table couldn't be there. And we all miss Part-Time Model. Actually, I have been putting so much sweat on Dave at Establishment about Part-Time Model because it was on their list of things to brew, but it wasn't towards the top. So I've been definitely sweating them about that. And I do see your comment, Wally, about thick resinous styles like Arrogant Bastard, and I completely agree with that. This is very much in that style. And I know, Aaron, you're writing promo on the board right now. Yes, I know you are. I could see you writing it. All right, fine. We'll talk about what we got coming up. So we've already covered Shiraz. That's coming up on Friday this week. Wednesday next week, we are going to do Tofino Brewing. Now, you're all going to see the promo when it rolls out. Please watch the promos. Aaron works so hard on them. You're all going to see the promos when it rolls out next week. But I've been trying to put together a Tofino tasting for the better part of like 4 months. But there's always 1 beer available, or 2 beers available, or 3 available. There's never, ever, ever 4 beers all in stock all at the same time. It's been a real challenge to like get to 4 all in stock at once. We finally hit that kismet moment where we could actually get 4 different Tofino beers, so now we can do Tofino properly. This is one of those breweries that I've been following for a long time, not quite as long as Outcast, but I've been following for ages. I really like what they're doing. I've been really excited to feature them, but it's never been the right time because they didn't have any beers that were actually available and in stock. They're finally available. They're finally here. We're going to do them. Grant Flegg from Copper and Theory is going to join us. That's our event next week. Yes, it follows our usual model of, look, an IPA, a different IPA, kettle sour, and okay, a stout. But these are the styles that sell, and these are the styles that matter right now. So we're going to go with this. It's going to be great. Did I play a role in More Than Rain and Cut the Cake? Yes and no, but mostly no. I got to be there when they were doing the cake tasting at establishment from Duchess Bakery with their Duke cake. So I got to actually, kind of weigh in on some of that, which was a lot of fun. But I don't think I really had a major impact. I had nothing to do with More Than Rain whatsoever. And, it's definitely kelp stout. It absolutely is kelp stout. And then, sneak preview. We're not going to talk about it too much, but next Friday. I've said I wanted to do it forever. That right there is a $140 bottle of grappa. There's going to be 3 other grappas. It's going to be grappa week. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's coming up next Friday, and it's going to be stupid. I had to do a lot of reading for Mezcal week. Grappa week? No, I'm going to have to do a lot less because I adore grappa. It's going to be a great deal of fun. Anything else really quick? No, let's jump into the pineapple. Because I'm very, as much as I love this, the pineapple just takes it to a whole other level. Was Mezcal the test of could we do Grappa Week? Yes, it was, openly. We knew we could sell Mezcal Week. Mezcal Week sold enough that we could do Grappa Week. Scotch will return. Scotch will be our next spirit tasting after Grappa. But we absolutely had to do Grappa Week because I'm me and I love Grappa that much. As I said, we sold 3 times as many, Scotch tasting sets as we did Mezcal sets. If this was all about the money, this would definitely be Scotch Week, but we make enough money, screw it. I want to do Grappa because Grappa's my thing. So no, it's Grappa Week. The pineapple is seasonal, yes. Well, just like Ring Pop was a seasonal and Jamrock is a seasonal, sometimes seasonals kind of get away from you like Frankenstein's monster and they just run away and you kind of have to make them year round. So it's a seasonal for now. Also, okay, I know it's only 10% pineapple juice, but this is all pineapple. This is just glorious. The pineapple mixing with like the caramel and richness and graininess of this kind of makes this come off like pineapple upside down cake. And I'm really there for that. Like I get the caramel and everything else. It's just, oh, I like this. This is IPA dessert in a can for me. Aaron, I don't care how many times you move the light fixtures, you can't make up for your Skype disaster earlier. I know you're trying, but you can't make up for it. I'm sorry.
Get some sick Ferris level burns to bring out here.
No comment. Yeah, there is some mouthfeel here. I will freely grant that. Also a very honeyed character, which for me is really specific. So, not a thing I've actually touched on a whole lot with the beer tastings. I don't like honey in beer. Full stop. I never have. I don't mind Bell's Hop Slam, which you've probably never had because you have to drive to like North Dakota to get it because that's as far west as it comes. Killer double IPA. They use honey to get it up to that higher alcohol. Even that I now find too sweet. Honey has this weird odd sweetness, but also a sourness when it ferments out that I don't like. This comes off as like a honeyed beer without that honey finish that finishes kind of sour. And I like this because it doesn't have that sourness. Too many bad nights in the Middle East where grappa is basically free. Well, grappa is very inconsistent in its quality. I have had all of the grappas now that we are going to be pouring for the tasting on Friday night, next Friday night. Devin and I actually opened a bottle and actually decided not to do it. We opened that on Monday when we were picking all the stuff for the grappa tasting next week. We actually opened 4 things. Tasted 3 out of the 4 were like, yep, these absolutely have to be there. And then we got to the 4th and we're like, no, this doesn't work. This isn't like what we want to show. So we actually we have a bottle of grappa down here that's mostly full that we're never going to taste on the channel because it didn't fit. So yeah, the Poli grappas are really amazing. The other thing I did remember, Devin, actually, is the same rep, I'm pretty darn sure, reps both Poli and Sabona in Alberta. So I think we can actually get a guest, which I think I know who the guest would be, and I don't think they know very much about grappa, so it'd actually be entertaining to have them as a guest just to force them to crash study. The better answer would be, let's see if we can get the guy from Italy, but it's going to be like 4 in the morning in Italy. So, and yeah, Poli is just stunning. So is this, by the way. Like, the pineapple just keeps coming through, keeps giving me more and more and more. And yes, it's making the beer sweeter, which, being that Devin's here, he always likes it as dry as possible. But I like how rich and generous the fruit is here. It gives the grapefruit something to play off of. It does mute some of the cereal notes, which there's a good and a bad here. I do like it better than the classic just because I really like pineapple. But if you said I like the classic more than the pineapple, I wouldn't fault you for that. No, I like this. It's pretty, it's flavorful, it's bright, and it's cheerful, and it's not desperately serious. It's just a fun, everyday, fruit-infused beer that happens to be based on a really classic, old-school West Coast IPA. And that's not a style I usually like if you throw fruit in, because it's a very kind of awkward, tippy style. I would not have thought if you started with just a West Coast IPA and threw a bunch of fruit in it, you'd end up with something good. I've had a lot of those over the years. They were not very good. This is quite good. I don't think Devin actually took the beers home this week. Ooh, rankings. Wow, this is incredibly different than when I thought this would go. Rumplestoutskin, like that level of coffee character for me is just, it's not quite unique. I've had coffee stouts that approached this from some very famous brewers like Cigar City and AleSmith and McKellar. Like there's some great coffee stouts out there. We can occasionally get some of the really good McKellar stuff, but AleSmith and Cigar City don't come up here. This is in that conversation, so that's a big winner for me. 2 has to be the pineapple, just because of how much that shouldn't work, and then it comes off being pineapple upside down cake, and I love it so much. That's brilliant. 3's this, because it kind of makes me fall in love all over again with the style of IPAs that I kind of came into beer drinking and had to a certain point abandoned. I mean, I always talk about how much I love West Coast IPAs, but let's be clear, I love West Coast IPAs kind of post-2008. I love that, like, Pliny the Elder, Blind Pig, and I know those beers came out before 2008, but they're kind of the second wave West Coast IPAs. This makes me fall in love with first wave IPAs all over again, and I never thought that was a thing that would happen. This is brilliant, and I love this. I love this for all the same reasons that I made the Citra-focused Pale Ale from, Aaron, save me here, the Ontario brewery that Great Lakes, The same reason that Citra Focus Pale Ale that was like really clean, the same reason that was my favorite beer that night. I love all of that with this, but it finishes behind these. There's a lot to love with this. Yeah, no. And yeah, I agree with Eric here. Like, the Rumplestoutskin has more coffee character than some espresso shots in town. Is it the best transfer of coffee flavor in a beer I've ever had? It might be, you know. The only other beer that I'd hold up against this is like AleSmith Speedway Stout, which is one of my favorite beers of all time. I'd even say like the barrel aged version of that might be my favorite beer of all time, at least it's ever going to be made again. Let's say it's my favorite non-imperial stout ever made. I know it's a really tiny, tiny, tiny shade of a shade, but yeah, that's really special. That's really, really special. Megan asks, is it just the same beer with pineapple? Again, we kind of lost Patrick before we could really dig into these because he had his birthday party to get to. But as far as I'm aware, it is just this with the pineapple juice. It's this 90%, 10% this, or 10% pineapple juice to get to this. So, yes. Man, I'm seeing a lot of 2s as the favorite of the night, which is what I felt too. Yeah, this was excellent. Absolutely excellent. Good Morning Vietnam was great. Stout Week is coming. And it has to come before, you know, we get into April, because, yeah, that's when all the stouts kind of dry up. I'd like to say I have a good reason for, you know, not doing one, other than the fact that we did kind of a pastry stout week. Yeah, no, I can't really say why we haven't done one already, except for the fact that we kind of did one, except it was just pastry stouts. No, we'll get to there. We'll get there. It'll be fine. All right, I think, Aaron, we're done. We're at an hour or thereabouts. You know, we wasted 10 minutes kind of being really desperate about the Skype feed, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, we always do, don't we?
We always do. One way or another, we get there. And on Friday, we don't have a guest, so we don't have to worry about Skype feeds. It's gonna be great.
Cakewalk.
Yeah, cakewalk. Textbook.
Textbook.
There we go. Not pastry. I know, Eric. Not pastry stouts. There will never be. Well, there might be pastry stout comedy hour when Aaron's drinking again. But you know, there might be that, but not anytime soon. I think, made it very eminently clear that I am not a pastry stout person, at least not after 2020, 2021. There were some real misses this last 12 months. Good Lord. No, I think we'll call that good for tonight and good for the week. And we will see all of you again for Tofino. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
See you again. Thanks very much. Good night.
Whatever.
Hello. Yeah, I was recording.
Media Boutique.